we'll be talking about artificial intelligence and its use in scholarly communication. So let's begin. We'll begin with a little paper by DALL-E, one of the artificial intelligence models, which was prompted by me to present us a picture at the exact topic of our today's seminar. So this is how taking a bite of AI looks from the point of view of this AI. Just have to mention that today we will not talk about funny pictures, mid-journey, stable diffusion, and so on. We'll talk about text generation and working with academic publications. But still, as an example of the magnificent capabilities of artificial intelligence, a rather haunting picture of chewing together. What will we talk instead of funny pictures is before your eyes on this slide, we'll explore three big topics, incorporating generative artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and similar tools into the academic workflow. Here, I have to stress that I use the terminology like general, generative AI. It's the mostly, layman's terms, because I'm not an expert in artificial intelligence, and general AI is often used as a term to refer to the all-seeing and all-capable artificial intelligence. But we use general AI as a way to refer to the tools which are not specifically geared towards academia and science communication, but instead are general interest tools and could be used elsewhere, not only in academia. And they are probably the most interesting innovations. Then we'll proceed to the specific tools which are tailored to be used in academic scholarly workflow. Specifically, we'll talk about academic language editing. Then we'll conclude with the new tools for searching academic literature and summarizing it using different techniques, both based on the artificial intelligence and also using network science and different visualizations, maps, and so on. There are hundreds of new AI-based tools and tens, so maybe 50 or 100 tools specifically geared to academic publishing, research, and so on. But they could be classified using these two simple axes, general versus academic. And the second axis is, are these new tools capable of searching something in the internet? The most popular one is general and incapable of search. This is ChatGPT, and some similar open source tools like Vicuna and so on. Some of the other more popular tools like Bing Chat, Bard, and so on, at least popular outside Russia, they are capable of searching the internet, and that's very important, especially for scholarly communication, because that allows them to look for specific papers and to cite them. That's a big pressing issue in artificial intelligence. Then there's the right part of this graph, academic tools. Perhaps the most high profile of them is nowadays closed. It's Galactica by Meta, formerly Facebook. It's a very expensive and large model trained on the academic corpus, but it was open for 2 or 3 days and then closed because it produced very inaccurate results. We'll not talk about it today. The other tools are they tread this path more carefully, and they do not they are not geared to text generation. They're mostly used to find new papers and to summarize them, elicit consensus, site assistant, and so on. We'll talk about first about the left part of this graph, and precisely we'll talk about ChatGPT and the other tools also, but in the lesser extent. So. ChatGPT is a large language model, a family of large language models, which their purpose is to present answers to the questions that humans ask them. These questions could be of any kind, and the answers are generated using a pre-trained large language model, sort of a neural network, which was trained on the vast corpus of human-generated knowledge, and then used techniques like supervised learning to fine-tune this model to present you the answers which are at times stunning, at times funny, but I think they're very useful in various contexts. What's important that the most advanced tools like GPT-4 are used in these general models. They are yet not available to many of these new academic tools because OpenAI, which produces this groundbreaking technology, essentially sells these access to them themselves. This means that the most advanced tools are in these general chatbots, not suited for, especially for scientists, but all the other academic specific tools, they use often use older models. So this is some sort of the interplay here, and we'll find out how it will expand from that. And I think that most of you will agree that we'll see many new and many probably even Russian tools like GPT-4, but in the next, at least in the next months, GPT-4 will remain the most advanced tool available. And it's available in Russia using VPN and a paid subscription, which is something like 2,000 rubles per month. There are many tools that pretend to be the most modern ChatGPT bots available, which lurk in Telegram, Discord, and so on. Usually, they are based on some older large language model like GPT-3. So I don't advise any of them. So this is important because there's a really popular, it's a really popular topic, and many people want to make money here. And I suggest to use the instruments which you know who exactly produces them, because all that you enter in these chatbots is available. All the text that you enter there, principle could be viewed by the employees of these various tech companies and startups. And if you are engaging with some murky Telegram bots, all of your text will be available to some other men and women with some other intentions. How can we use these tools? This is a simple matrix. We can use them in the context of academic writing to generate texts. Text generation in academia, this sounds controversial right from the start because we're talking about research. So this text generation is, in a sense, producing new research and new knowledge. This is highly controversial. We can also review some texts, and this is already gaining traction. We'll also look at the example of such reviewing, and it's also extremely controversial. Also, we'll talk about text summarization. This means that we make a long story short, just to summarize the paper or parts of this paper, because now even abstracts are too long because there are so many papers, like 3 million papers each year in Scopus database, for example. We're talking about these quantities. Then we'll artificial intelligence can suggest some editing and proofreading. It is used in some general tools, like most of you know Grammarly. Grammarly is currently not available in Russia, but before that it was rather popular. It's not a specifically academic tool. It's the general equivalent of PaperPal in academia. We can use these large language models and chatbots for rewriting academic texts, which is also highly controversial. It's great for plagiarizing, for hiding the traces of plagiarizing, and it is very poorly detected. And then we can use these tools for academic translation. Today we won't talk about DeepL or some other advanced tools for translation, but we have to mention that the general chatbots and ChatGPT, for example, is highly capable of translation as well. So we can fill this matrix, try to fill it with some different academic tools like Elicit, Semantic Scholar, PaperPal, whatever. But in reality, this probably looks more like these variants. So ChatGPT and similar tools, but mainly ChatGPT, can be used for all of these tasks. Successfully or not very successfully, but still it's capable of doing all of this. And we'll start with the most pressing issue. Probably it's the writer's block. So text generation, this is another picture drawn by DALL-E artificial intelligence, the last one, but I like it. It depicts a scholar. I prompted it to draw a modern scholar, but still this one, he has some computer, but old style books, and what he also has is spring outside, nice weather indeed, and it's how the writer's block looks like. And without further ado, let's proceed to text generation and to overcoming this writer's block. Here I present you some excerpts from ChatGPT, GPT-4, how it actually can help you with this writer's block. So this is my prompt. I prompt ChatGPT to suggest some novel research questions. In my academic area, I work in the intersection of research evaluation, bibliometrics, and some unintended consequences of using bibliometrics in research evaluation. Until so recently, I've moved from administration and heading the Scientific Center and managing the various HSE whitelists, blacklists, and so on, to writing papers. And sometimes I'm thinking about what to do next. So this is the what I've asked ChatGPT, and these are the answers. What's important here? They look quite good as far as I'm concerned. Let's look at them a bit longer. Are these research questions interesting and valid? I think some of them are, but some maybe less than the others, but still each one of them could become a paper. And some of them are have already become papers, but not like me or ChatGPT, but by other researchers. Okay, what's important? So it's better to ask for some sort of bullet list or numbered list when you're talking about, with ChatGPT in the academic context, because now that's the way to get more information. So here I suggest 6 novel research questions, and well, here I choose one of them. What's the relationship between national research relation policies and the adoption and misuse of bibliometric indicators? Well, it sounds rather interesting, and more. It's a really pressing issue. Yes, so we have some comments in the chat. Yes, if they have already become subject of another paper, they don't quite qualify as novel. Yes, sure it is, but currently we are in the situation that it's very natural to write a paper only to find out that it was already written by someone else. But that's no tragedy here, because we can reproduce some research using our data and so on. So I think it's not a big problem. We'll talk about it when we proceed to searching the literature. I personally find this one okay. We'll proceed from it. Just, it's quite simple. That's the next prompt. Just write an academic introduction with a title, abstract, keywords, and literary review. This is important one. For the question number 5. So we get a rather generic sounding title. But what's important, that from my point of view, it sounds quite not only generic, but typical, for at least for scientometrics and research evaluation crowd, and the journals which we read and conferences which we attend. Perhaps it even sounds interesting. And the abstract is what's important here, that the ChatGPT suggests a kind of research strategy here, using a systematic analysis of policy documents. So this is one approach, a rather popular one, and often implemented in such studies. Interviews with stakeholders, yes, great, and an examination of bibliometric data. So this is really a cross-section of different but interconnected academic fields, and these research questions sound valid to me. Also, the abstract outlines why is this important. So these findings from this study will contribute to deeper understanding and, well, all this rather typical academic knowledge which we all use, a language which we all use when justifying why our articles are important. The keywords are okay. And it's important that you can also give as a prompt an academic text or an abstract, and ChatGPT will produce keywords for you. For example, it's one of the rather typical use cases of ChatGPT, sort of summarization, which I've talked earlier. Then we proceed. That's the same prompt, nothing new. it's the same answer. We proceed to the literature review. This is the most controversial topic. Often we hear that ChatGPT or similar tools tend to hallucinate. By this term, we mean that ChatGPT generates papers that do not exist, and this limits its usage in literature review and in scholarly usage. That's partly true, as we'll find out. This is GPT-4, and from my experience, it hallucinates much less than the previous version, but still it does. This literature review, it is too generic, and that's natural because we did not provide any sufficient context. Just we just gave some phrases about the academic fields. Just the input was too short, but still it managed to produce a literature review, which on the surface looks like any other literature review. And it's structured in a way that is okay, and probably this is how you my colleagues at the academic center are suggesting to write such reviews. So we start with some general literature about why it's important to study implications of science policy and indicators in the general context. And these are the valid links, as we'll see. Then it proceeds to the studying of post-Soviet countries, which is not a very popular topic in research literature, especially in the English language research literature, but still there are many, I think like 100 or maybe more papers on this topic, which were available to ChatGPT when it was trained. And it's here I have to mention that we don't know exactly which papers were available to ChatGPT when it was trained. I assume that there are many millions of such papers, not only papers in open access, which is important, but especially the papers in open access, which means that you, when you're writing papers, make sure that they are in open access, because that could mean, but that in the course of the next years, people who are using ChatGPT or similar tools for such kinds of review will cite your works more often. This literature review concludes with the few studies have focused specifically on post-Soviet countries, so that's a rather typical academic introduction. Let's look at the papers, the references. What's important? The red ones are those that are not real. These hallucinations, they were somehow generated by GPT-4. But all of them are by the authors that exist and have written something on this issue, like Leonid Goldberg and Tatiana Kuznetsova from Higher School of Economics. You know Leonid Goldberg, and probably most of you know Tatiana Kuznetsova, one of the leading experts in Russian and Soviet science and technology policy. The paper is in the Foresight, the journal that they publish, but probably it is, I try to open the paper, which, well, just we have to, yes, I think this was the paper, the real paper. which caused this particular hallucination. We note that it sounds similar. The authors are similar. The journal is not the Foresight journal, but somehow the ChatGPT engine have merged different papers by Leonid Gogbert and Tatiana Kuznetsova on this topic into the new one. What does this mean? That you have to check, currently you have to check all the suggestions regarding academic literature, which are generated by ChatGPT. But some of them are valid, and those that are not valid could probably lead to really relevant real papers. You have to find them somehow. Some papers are valid, but some details of the bibliographic descriptions are wrong. For example, this one, the issue of the Scientometrics journal is the wrong one. And this is really difficult to spot. So these small errors also often are produced by ChatGPT. Sometimes the year of publication is wrong. This one is 2016, not 2017. But some papers are completely okay, and they are the most, dare I say, the better known ones and the probably higher cited ones. So this is the Leiden Manifesto, the one of the that's not an academic article, but still a very important text in science policy. And all this information is correct. So the bottom line is that we have to check everything, but still it could be a valid and useful tool for exploring a new topic, a new area, or even the area that is known to you. And probably the latter case is better because you'll be available to detect these discrepancies and errors because you're the one who knows the context. And then after this literary review, the ChatGPT is still using this same prompt produces the introduction. So building on this existing literature, we'll examine the national policies, employ a mixed methods approach. Oh, sounds convincing. Interviews with policymakers, university administrators, and researchers. And this study aims to contribute to the broadening understanding. Well, so it looks okay. It could be a starting point for a real academic article. Just you have to edit it. Probably after you've amended the text with some new references and so on, you can feed it back to ChatGPT because, as you have probably noticed, its language skills, academic English skills, are, well, better than mine. At least hope that you have much better mastery of academic English, but still, if you don't, this one produces text that sound very good. And also, it can help with the research itself. For example, you've mentioned a questionnaire. You've mentioned interviews with stakeholders. Okay, interview means we need some questionnaire. So then I asked ChatGPT to suggest a questionnaire for state university research administrators to be used in this study and provide some more context. I ask it to focus on mandatory reporting to the Ministry of Science of Russia, which is linked to funding allocation and uses a whole galaxy of multicolored problematic bibliometric indicators like quartiles, Q, like they say in Russia. This Q is what has dominated Russian academia, at least for the previous 10 years. And here we are, a questioner. I am no specialist in qualitative sociology, and this is a not structured interview because I did not ask for a structured one, but still it could be also it could be of some use. The questions that are suggested by ChatGPT, they all sound okay. Sometimes they sound funny because here we ask the research administrator to from some Russian research university to report to us the cases of gaming and manipulation of bibliometric indicators in his own institution. Surely he won't do that. He or she we won't. They won't do that, and that's why it won't. They won't suit for such a question. But also it could be used as a starting point. This is a complete one with thank you for taking your time for completing the questionnaire and so on. Also, we can ask ChatGPT for some advice about the course of the paper itself. Just what exactly do we study here? For example, we ask for a strategy of using bibliometric indicators and the exact setup composition. You see, my academic English is not quite well. So at least ChatGPT understands me. To study the distorting effects of the formulaic indicators. It clearly understands some abbreviations. And here it's the strategy with 7 steps. Like first, we select a range of bibliometric indicators. All these indicators are okay. They are not hallucinated. They are real indicators, and some of them are specific. Some of them are more modern than others. I personally do not suggest the usage of H-index, but it's still often used. The data collection and the suggestion to complement the usage of bibliometric indicators with funding data. A good one. Then we conduct a longitudinal analysis to track the changes of these indicators. So the research strategy focuses on the exact what we've asked for. I think it's also a valid step here. So we really can compare the and actually I and my colleagues Maria Yutkevich and others, we have some similar papers. For example, some papers on the Russian University Excellence Initiatives. Then we complement it with qualitative analysis using these questionnaires and so on, and synthesis and recommendations. Well, it's great, but it looks like a research strategy for a book, maybe not a single paper, just more than I asked for. Then you can easily ask ChatGPT to elaborate on any of these steps. Data collection, just where to collect this data, and it will talk about Web of Science scopus and so on. Regression analysis. What's important, it's really great in all that's connected to data manipulation and writing scripts, writing codes, and so on. For example, we ask it to produce a Python script to do regression analysis of these bibliometric indicators and funding data, which ChatGPT has just suggested. Okay, we get a working code with comments that suggest that not only suggest the exact working script that will do the task, but also adds these comments to help us to understand what exactly is being done here. And you just can copy and launch it. What's also important, and that could not fit in the screenshot because it's, well, a longer script, that the ChatGPT suggests that doing a simple regression often is not a good strategy, at least if the variables have some non-linear or some complex relationships. You might consider transforming these using other regression models and so on. So it's, in a sense, it acts like a mentor or teaching assistant, advising you to not only do something, but also not to do something. In the academic life and work, this is also important. I have a question about quantitative research surveys. Well, I personally did not generate, and I did not ask ChatGPT for quantitative research surveys, but as today we have many users of ChatGPT. Some of them are probably sociologists or other scholars engaged in quantitative surveying, and maybe someone can share their experience, and we'll proceed. Finally, we've done some research. We've produced something like a literary review and even a questionnaire. Let's pretend that we have the paper already written. What next? Suggest some respected, this is important, respected academic journals to submit such a manuscript. And we get suggestions, and these suggestions are probably better than the tools that are used currently by Wiley, Elsevier, Springer Nature in their journal suggestion tools. You are probably aware of such tools. Each big publishing house nowadays has such a suggestion, but this one is better because it suggests journals from all the publishers. And also, it also has some valid links to the sites of these journals. And also it has comments because, for example, PLOS ONE is a journal which is not a journal about bibliometrics, scientometrics, or research evaluation, but it is really popular in these areas. It's also in many other areas. It's a mega journal, open access mega journal, but it is acknowledged here that we said it. ChatGPT suggests PLOS ONE, but with a focus on bibliometrics, scientometrics, and research evaluation. It's a subsection of PLOS ONE. All these journals do exist, so these are not hallucinations, and they are. These suggestions are mostly spot on. They are good. Some of these journals, I'm not very familiar with higher education policy and management, but, well, judging from the name of the publisher, it's a respected journal. And some concluding remarks from the ChatGPT, again, it acts like a mentor and reminds you that there are different guidelines and requirements for each of these journals. Please review these guidelines and requirements and so on. Also consider the scope and target audience. Well, bless these recommendations. Today we'll talk about these specific requirements, and here artificial intelligence also helps. ChatGPT can also format the citation styles for you, but there are other tools for this task. Okay, let's pretend that we've submitted the paper, and now we act as the other side, the darker side, or just the significant other here, significant two others, reviewer number 2 and reviewer number 1. We ask ChatGPT to provide us with a highly critical review. What's important that ChatGPT and similar tools, they are not very critical. The living scholars are much more critical, as all of us know. When reading these reviews, sometimes it's a difficult task. Here it is the review of the. I've suggested ChatGPT to review ChatGPT. This is a kind of a joke because it's probably like it will all end in the course of the next 10 years. But still, here's the review. It's rather generic with some suggestions, but it's a perfect use case for the scenario when you are an experienced scholar. You do reviewing often. You write many reviews each year, and this is kind of boring. You don't like it very much, especially when the paper is okay but not interesting. This is just our case because it's generated by with the help of ChatGPT, which is kind of generic. But still, there's some sort of academic review and some suggestions, clarifying something, providing more information about the data sources, expanding discussion, and so on. It presents an interesting and timely research question, could be strengthened by refining the abstract, and so on. That's not okay if you're reviewer number 2. Make it much more critical. That's my second prompt. Now we get something which is more familiar, at least for me, as an author, not the reviewer. This review definitely looks more typical of the academic reviews I've received myself. The abstract fails to provide sufficient detail, needs significant revisions. Overall, the academic introduction is not yet a high scholarly standard, and so on. So just fine-tuning the tone and of such reviews can change the text quite a lot. And I suggest, I suspect that such reviewing is already widespread. And there are thousands of such reviews already sent to authors. We know about some of these cases because they were, we'll talk about it later, but they were produced by the older models and thus they were detected. This one is GPT-4 and it looks much better. The other very important and interesting case is rewriting, academic rewriting of the text that you've written or generated, somehow produced. This one is here is the exact prompt. Rewrite the article in the style of Pierre Bourdieu. I hope that you're familiar with the writings of Pierre Bourdieu, which is notoriously difficult to understand, but has a very idiosyncratic style. There is very so the French theoretical sociology at its best. And here we see many such markings of Pierre Bourdieu's writing. His terminology and the text is transformed. It could be using such simple trick. It could be possibly submitted to the journals more in the field of science and technology studies, more close to sociology. Perhaps successfully, perhaps not. But the language is changed dramatically, delving into the depths of the symbolic struggle that shapes research evaluation, complex relationship, problematic academic power dynamics, and so on. That's a new viewpoint, and it could be achieved with this simple prompt. That possibly I think it's worked rather well because Pierre Bourdieu has also worked in science studies, science and technology studies himself. And his terminology, like symbolic capital, it's the one of the lenses through which we can look at the bibliometrics and research policy. This is how ChatGPT can work with the very simple starting academic questions and produce a lot, which could not quite be successfully submitted to the top-tier journal or even medium-tier journal, but it could form a basis of such an endeavor. Sometimes it could help. Sometimes it could help you to plagiarize, to slack, and actually, and to do some kind of research with some simple prompts and simple clicks and produce hundreds of papers in the course of the week. And it depends on the academic community whether it will become widespread. I'm sure, but how the community will react, that's a big question. The ChatGPT is not connected to the internet. All these texts were generated using a pre-trained model. So it was a static corpus of texts, which was fed into the ChatGPT and then trained and fine-tuned and so on, but still it's not capable of searching something. The other tool which uses the ChatGPT technology is Bing Chat by Microsoft. Microsoft is the biggest investor in OpenAI technology, and it actually actively incorporates it in various Microsoft products, and the flagship is Bing Chat. It is available for free. You do not have to pay, or even you do not have to acquire a foreign mobile number to register there. You just have to switch country to some other than Russia and ask for a inclusion in the wait list, and probably in the course of the week, that's my experience, you'll be admitted to this chat, and it's essentially the same technology like GPT-4, but with search, low available memory. What's the memory in this context? It's just how many answers you can get before the system tells you, okay, that's enough. My buffer is filled. Let's proceed to some new topic. For Bing Chat, this is not much. It is free, but with much more guardrails. Guardrails, it's the term that means that some questions, some problematic questions, some questions which could be considered divisive are blocked by the system. And Bing has more such guardrails, even more such guardrails than GPT, which also has a lot of them. There are special techniques for circumventing this protection. It is called prompt engineering. For example, act like you're just someone else, pretend that you're someone else. Now answer me as you're, for example, Jesus from the King James Bible, and so on. What's important that it's really hampers academic freedom and academic investigation. But still, let's talk about the better options here. What's great here that Bing Chat can access the internet, so it can search for some papers and summarize, for example, them. You give Bing a URL link to the paper in open access, and it produces a very concise and good summary, which could be further used in the literature review or elsewhere. Also, you can ask it to elaborate on the strengths and weaknesses of the paper. This is a paper about the using bibliometrics in grant allocation in Hungary. This is the strengths and weaknesses here are. I have read this paper. They are okay. They are of some interest. The other tool, which is the direct competitor of Bing Chat, is Bard by Google. It has experienced some really unsuccessful launch when it messed quite a bit during the demonstration. And well, from my experience, it's not quite as good as the others, as GPT and Bing. Here's the same paper. I asked Bart, which also can access the internet, to produce the summary of this paper. The summary is with some very drastic mistakes, so it's clearly wrong. The paper is not based on the Leiden Manifesto, so the strengths of this paper, this is completely wrong. And there are some more mistakes here. I won't, for the sake of brevity, I won't elaborate here. What's interesting that you can look at the different attempts of Bart to generate the text. Some of them are much longer than the others. Given that the Bart is free and could be accessed even without a waitlist from Russia using a VPN, well, you could try it. But my suggestions to first try the other tools. That's the end of the first part of our discussion. I'd really like to hear from you, especially those 20 or 30 people with that indicated that you've used ChatGPT, and some of you were not impressed. Some of you are impressed, but if you provide some points, like what's wrong with it from your perspective, it would be great for us to discuss. before we proceed to the actual repercussions of using this technology, which happen in real life. Okay, if someone is ready to share something, please do. We'll move on to this wilderness of academic people using all these tools. It's a slide that I've produced using some captions of some news items, tweets, and so on. What's happening here? A lot. ChatGPT listed as author on research papers. Yes, it happens, but it does not happen often because of the swift reaction of the established academic publishing community, which mostly banned this practice. So you can find a profile of ChatGPT in Google Scholar, but it has minuscule amount of papers. I don't think that it's really the pressing issue here. ChatGPT as a declared co-author. But what's more important, that ChatGPT is used discreetly. Also, it is already used for peer reviewing. This is the case. One professor in Europe got his paper rejected, and then he found out that this review was written by GPT because he found the reviewer, the AI reviewer, asked him instead to familiarize this poor guy with the following readings, the papers which were hallucinated and they did not exist. So the slacker reviewer who produced this review with the help of ChatGPT did not bother even to remove these papers, hallucinated papers. What if he did remove these papers? Probably this would not be detected. But still, in this case, it was detected, and the editor removed the reviewer. What's then happens because of the general nervousness of the academic crowd? The other guy got his paper rejected because a reviewer suggested that he generated the article using ChatGPT. But in fact, that's not true, at least if we believe Mr. Mahabal. And because his reasoning is clear, submission deadline was before ChatGPT was even released. Still, the hype was so strong that some reviewers suspected him in writing papers with ChatGPT. What's also here? These two boxes. These are from the students, and one of the plethora of services which offer essay writing, computer-assisted, artificial intelligence-assisted essay writing. Here, I don't know. I don't teach personally. Sometimes, but sometimes I get some essays for me to read, but that does not happen often. But this is also very pressing issue because these testimonials, they suggest that we have a big problem, and there are many surveys which are geared not at the academic people like we are today. We are the most we are the scholars of one of the best, the most distinguished universities in Russia, but still, well, just half of us have used ChatGPT. When the students are asked the same question, the students from much lower esteemed and higher esteemed universities and schools, their rate of adoption is much higher, like 89 or 90%. Most of them use ChatGPT for writing essays. If you have some impressions of dealing with this problem in Russia, also, it would be great to hear. For those who are using academic papers as a symbolic capital to acquire real life capital, for example, the famous Spanish scholar, which was affiliated with one of the Russian universities also, and was sacked from his Spanish university for publishing hundreds of articles and selling the author co-author places in these articles. Yes, he was also using ChatGPT right from the start. When it appeared, he was the early adopter. Who are the early adopters? Some of them are clearly those people like this Professor Luke. Also, there are many questions with privacy and personal data. OpenAI ChatGPT was blocked in Italy of the privacy concerns. There are also problems in Germany and so on. That's not the topic of our discussion today, but still it's important. Yes, I see that at least some of you have already encountered ChatGPT authored or co-authored essays this year, so it's happening. In a sense, this is good because our students are actually exploring these new capabilities. But what could be done and what happens in the area of scientific publishing? Here, I just note several examples. For example, Nature and Springer Nature, they were one of the first to react and to install a policy which deals with this issue. What's important? This is their opinion paper, editorial on this issue, and these are their rules. They are already enacted. No LLM, large language model tool, will be accepted as a credited author. So this means that Mr. ChatGPT and his Google Scholar profile will probably lack papers in Nature. Can editors and publishers detect text generated by large language models? This, in reality, this is the most important question. The answer is perhaps. It depends. You know that if it's an older model, it could be detected, especially if it hallucinates or it was prompted using some simple language, produced some very generic text. But still, no, we don't have a good tool for detecting such texts. But yes, all the major players, including Turnitin, of course, they are the biggest player in plagiarism detection. They do something anti-plagiat Russian system. They also do something, but they have limited resources compared to Turnitin or Springer Nature. Springer Nature also develops such technologies to detect this, but the large language models are developing faster, and I think that this battle is doomed unless, well, there are some ideas. They're probably to be better presented by specialists like watermarking, but I don't know how watermarking can work in texts. And well, thanks for your comments. What can I advise? I'm no specialist, not an expert in teaching. sadly or happily, I don't know, but there are many calls to switch from essays to some other forms of communication or evaluation in terms of academic achievements. Sadly, I don't have good answers here, but if anyone else has, please share. We'll talk about the mostly about scholars who have already finished their at least master's degrees. The top conferences in the exact field of artificial intelligence that produce this monster or something good, I don't know. They have a very strict policy of prohibiting any text produced entirely by large language models generated. But all these terms are just academic community scrambles to find out and to elaborate what they mean by generated. What do they mean by produced entirely? What does this mean using LLMs for editing or polishing author-written text? So where's the boundary between editing, rewriting, polishing, plagiarism, and so on? These are the pressing questions. We'll find out if there are any good answers here. I don't know. What's interesting here, I won't follow these links, but if you are interested, please do. That this conference is even threatening that if they are the experts in this field, and they tell that they don't have a good detection system as of now. They don't have it, but they will implement the how our it's from the Russian news, if a popular Russian word, danoshchik, that's the tool that they will implement. If someone else points that this probably is text generated by ChatGPT, this conference threatens to disclose the names of the authors to all the other conferences in their field, and so on. Another cautious approach is proposed by the one of the bigger academic societies. This is American Chemical Society. And they have a special opinion written by a lot of scholars, top chemists, top American chemists probably, but actually it's quite lame. I think that ChatGPT itself would produce a better text. There are some bullets, some what really bothers scholars that these language bots are incapable of generating insights. That's not true. They don't generate insights. They generate some text that could be an insight in the eyes of one researcher and some stupid thing in the eyes of the other. I think they missed the point here. But still, they have some suggestions. And I also suggest something similar. Acknowledge the use of ChatGPT. This is the most important one. Do not conceal it. Please do acknowledge that you have used ChatGPT for this and that. And well, the others are pretty straightforward. Do not use text verbatim from ChatGPT. Well, these are not your words. Rewrite them, probably using the same ChatGPT. Okay. you can read. I'm joking that the policy is lame because that's the best that human society can produce now. I think we'll some of you clearly can find these instructions more useful than others. And that's the end of this highly controversial topic. We move to much safer waters using special academic tools. Yes, this is a good question in the chat, not the question, but point that chemistry and physics are mostly based on formulas, visuals. Yes, that's a big one. We did not discuss it today because it's not the exact area of expertise of me and my academic writing center. The understanding of graphs, pictures, tables, formulas, and so on. That it's worse than understanding of bare texts. And also, there's a big problem with math and calculations using ChatGPT. Do not use it to find answers for some even very simple arithmetic problems. It could provide wildly incorrect and even some fantastic answers. But it could be in the nearest future, it could be somehow mitigated by connecting ChatGPT to some plugins like Wolfram Alpha, who knows who deals with the math, and that could be a whole new story. Also, this ChatGPT GPT-4 can there are huge leaps in understanding, in in these murky terms, I say, understanding pictures and tables and some graphs. Well, I think in the course of the 1 or 2 years, there will be huge progress, like in the fields of video generation. But enough of that. Let's try the other tools, and we have some time left, and we'll move forward, starting with Elicit. It is one of the tools to help you find the answers to research questions stemming from the real, not hallucinated, but real papers written by others, and probably you yourself will try this using, this is my research question, but you could try any other. This is how Elicit looks like. It's very simple. It's built on a lot of papers from Semantic Scholar precisely, and some other sources like OpenAlex. So this is not from Web of Science, Scopus, or Google Scholar. This is from the new generation of scientific and scientometric databases. Crossref, OpenAlex, Semantic Scholar, and so on. They power this new generation of artificial intelligence-based tools. And we ask Elicit a research question. Is it appropriate to use journal impact factor for assessing individual researchers' performance? A highly controversial question. My personal answer is no, and it's the answer also. Sure, yes. The addresses of the tools I took here, sure, the slides are already here, so with all the links and so on. If you want the link to the ChatGPT, it's chat.openai.com. But you can easily Google it. Elicit reads these papers using their summarizations. So these are the most relevant papers. And their summaries, which not quite good, but you can also use it. They are produced by artificial intelligence. But what's probably the most interesting is this summary. This is the answer to your research question. You can try your questions here and share your experience. And this is the summary of the top 4 papers we see here, and it does a job of producing such a literary review. These are real papers. I stress it. They do exist, and this text is based on exactly these papers. It's not the result of some statistical model with opaque weightings and so on, producing something somehow. This is based on the real papers. The papers are mostly okay, and it's a really nice tool to start your literature review of some topic. We can use resort these papers, for example, using year. So, and this summary magically changes. So now we've sorted the papers using their publication year. So these are the recent papers. And now we get the review of the state of the research in this area based on the recent literature with all the links provided. Here we can also export these citations into the formats appropriate for inserting in Zotero, Mendeley, or in your paper. As you can see here, this tool is more geared towards biomedical research. If someone here is doing this kind of research, you'll find these ones really probably. That's not the intervention and outcomes and number of participants. That's not good for bibliometric investigations, but in the biomedical context, it's even better. So we can add this intervention here, and the interventions extracted from the papers will hopefully appear here. But as all these tools are in their infancy, some of them take longer than the others, and the quality of the internet here at HSE does not help a lot. For the those who are not from the biomedical field but have to report something to the ministry or someone else, we can add something like familiar Scopus quartiles and so on. It's time to move on. So I suggest you experiment with Elicit yourselves. Try your research questions that of interest to you. It is built on the scholarly corpus of Semantic Scholar, and this is if you are interested exactly how does it produce these summaries, which is very important because ChatGPT is not exactly scientific in the terms that we don't know how it works. This is very important. And this tool, it tries to show us how does it exactly generate all this goodness. There are several similar tools. The other Elicit is probably the most popular, but the others, you can also try them. The one which generates a bit of the buzz is this consensus app. It's get conclusions from the research papers. So they all elicit consensus and so on. They capitalize on this perceived inability of ChatGPT to properly cite academic papers. So let's try, well, benefits of mindfulness. Won't try that. Let it be creatinine and muscle. So what this tool does, it not only summarizes the paper, but tries to answer your question positively or negatively, producing the breakdown of different papers which support or contradict your claim or research question. But if we asked it a question about the journal impact factor for assessing individual researchers' performance, somehow it says that 80% of the papers, 5 papers it analyzed, supported. This is not true. So be careful here. Maybe this too will become better as it ages. The other website which is potentially of interest is Semantic Scholar. I've already mentioned it a lot. So here it is. It is does not require any registration, but you could sign in and have your researcher profile here. It's much more like a typical academic search engine, like Google Scholar, Web of Science, Scopus, and so on. So you cannot ask it a research question. No papers found. You just have to focus on some keywords. Journal impact factor, let it be. What's important here, what's probably interesting here, is that the system, Semantic Scholar, it indexes a lot of papers. It indexes both open access and closed open access papers, and it has what sets it apart from the Web of Science, Scopus, and so on, that it has access to the full text of the papers. They cannot provide you with access to the paper which is paywalled, but their algorithms have read it and used it for their artificial intelligence tricks and so on. What this system produces very good, as far as I'm concerned, very good summarizations called TLDR. Too long, did not read. So this is those, in a sense, abstracts condensed to 1 or 2 sentences. And this is probably the best attempt of condensing the whole research paper to 1 or 2 sentences. And it is often important and interesting. We can look at the profiles of individual scholars. So this is the typical functionality of scholarly search databases. What's novel here also is, apart from this TLDR bits, it's the citation classification. So this database, which serves as the backbone of several other tools, it classifies citations into regular ones and highly influential. This means that the paper that cited this paper cited it in a way that was meant that this particular paper was really important for the paper that cited it. It's done using machine learning and the This is elaborated on this website, so they have a special paper where they disclose how exactly they do it. These citations we can also explore them here. Also, it suggests related papers, not connected with our papers by direct citation links, but related using some text measures, text similarity, and so on. Also, a nice tool. And it has user profiles, so you can find yourself here, check if everything is okay, and suggest some corrections, because this system is very popular. I think it's the second most popular after Google Scholar. Probably not in Russia, but for example, in the United States or parts of Europe. So it's important that your works are discoverable here in a convenient way. And also it's important because I stress again that the Semantic Scholar is used as a database by many new startups like Elicit and so on. Also, the dimensions database, which looks like Scopus and Web of Science, it has introduced an artificial intelligence based subject classification. What's the key selling point here? When we talk about the Web of Science and Scopus, they have very simple subject classification. Just they assign subjects to journals until the papers in this journal receive all the subjects assigned to this journal, which is, as you can easily understand, that not a good one, not a good way, especially for journals like PLOS ONE, scientific reports, and so on. This system attempts to classify papers on the level of papers, not journals, and does it using a machine learning approach and rather granular classification of research fields. A lot of these fields. So you can browse the papers linked to these topics using advanced machine learning techniques. So you can find papers, for example, about automotive engineering, not only in the journals that, which were specifically about automotive engineering, but from all the other journals also. Really nice tool. We have some time left, which I suggest we use to improve the quality of our academic writing using artificial intelligence enabled tools for paper editing and proofreading. The most well-known here, I think, is Grammarly, which is not available in Russia, and it's also the general interest tool, not an academic tool. PaperPal is the most important and most popular in the academic context. And also why it's important, because it is very widely used by academic publishers. Let's Google PaperPal pre-flight. Some of you might hear something about this pre-flight. What is this? It's a tool for checking the your submissions before submitting them. And it is used by many top publishers. Let's look at the Institute of Physics, IEEE, some American, I don't know, some association, Lippincott, Williams, and so on. Cambridge University Press, the top names in the game. They suggest that you, prior to submitting the text, use this pre-flight feature. Let's look at it. For example, the Institute of Physics and the So this is this pre-flight. It's available free of charge. Just to show you how good your manuscript is, I'll probably try some of my texts. You could use any of yours. This is the chapter that was published in the edited volume in Brill. So I'm just uploading a Word file here. Let's wait a bit, and we see that this AI-based system trained on the millions of other academic papers starts crunching my text and filling this checklist. While it works, I use the same tool, but fine-tuned by Institute of Physics Press, one of the top players in the field of physics, astronomy, and so on. So it processes our paper, and the same goes. You see these checklists are different because Institute of Physics does not care about some of these issues, which are potentially available to all the publishers, and that could lead to very different results. Okay, so here's the result. Critical issues. Your manuscript has a very high risk of being rejected. Oh, that's terrible, but it's already published. We strongly suggest that you address these issues. And that's the text. You can download it with all the 286 suggestions, but here you have to pay $29, which I don't have. What's with the Institute of Physics? The same tool, minor issues. Your manuscript can be submitted as it is. Yes, so that's a huge difference. Just highlight that this tool is becoming more and more popular. And what about these suggestions? Do we have to pay $29? No, we don't have. Here's the how it works. Just I'll start from the scratch. This is the free instance of PaperPal, and it is free. You have 500 suggestions per month. And after that, you have to pay. Each month, they renew this quota. So you can, this is another of my papers, and I just copy-paste the introduction here, and this PaperPal starts producing their suggestions. You can do the same with any of your texts which you think require some editing, or maybe on the contrary, which you think are great and do not require any editing, copy editing, and so on. Well, it looks familiar for those who've used similar tools like Grammarly. Many rephrases, suggestions, and so on. Word choice. I won't go through all of these suggestions to my sorry paper. It's the language here is not quite good, as you can see. So there are plenty of suggestions, but also some suggestions are clearly superficial, and I think they are just geared to increase your count of free suggestions. So the too many of them. You just have to sift through these items and accept some of them, reject, or well, somehow do something else with your paper. Rephrase, article usage, redundancy. So I think that it is very much like what is done in the Academic Writing Center of Higher School of Economics. I have successfully used these services, but we've worked with the living editor, consulting editor, who helped me a lot, but the workflow was similar. We looked at the paper and he suggested some edits. You can use it. Not instead of Academic Writing Center appointments, but to maybe complement it. I like to show you the literature mapping tools just to show how they look like, and then you'll experience them yourself if you find them useful. I'll show just two of them. These tools are not very AI intensive, but they use this scholarly metadata and different data mining techniques to help you find new papers. It's a different story using visualizations and different maps of papers some people find it really useful. If there are some people who find it useful, we can make I devote another seminar to these kinds of tools. We can start from any paper, like the one that was just fed to PaperPal. This is one of my papers, so we start with it. Start a seed map, and now we see the map with different papers. This is the paper in question. These are the ones that cited, self-cites, and so on. And these are the papers that were cited by this paper. This is we can change the axis. Here it's the date and number of citations. Still, it's an interesting tool for such graphical exploration using these maps. You can start with one paper, then switch to any other paper, use it as a seed for another set of papers. We can mix several papers, like on one topic, predatory journals in Scopus. There are several papers. Let's add them to our starting group and continue. So we have some set of papers which then is treated as a set of citation relationships which allow the system to suggest similar papers which could be of interest. Here they are. I won't elaborate on this, but you can easily do it yourself. Then you can add them to collections, different kinds of maps, and so on. There are some questions, one question at least. What instruments can we use in Russian? Well, you could use the ChatGPT, but you have to be aware that the corpus of texts in Russian, which was used for training ChatGPT, is a tiny fraction of the English language corpus. So this means that the results that will be generated will be much simpler, and the knowledge base in Russian is not comparable to what is in English. What I suggest that you can easily translate your Russian text into English using, I suggest, for example, a DeepL translator, or even Google Translate, or even ChatGPT itself. And then you can work with the English version of the text to generate some insights, or so on, and then probably translate it back into Russian. And there are also some new Russian tools. Sberbank has unveiled a chatbot which is invitation only. I did not try it yet, but the comments so far are not encouraging. Those people who did try it find it inferior to ChatGPT or Bing. Should we pre-upload any articles in ChatGPT? No, you don't have to pre-upload anything. And actually, this is now it's difficult to feed to ChatGPT a long text. You can, when you have a paid subscription, your the amount of text you have, you can ask it to feed to ChatGPT is bigger, but still it is just several pages. You could do it in several steps. Like you can tell ChatGPT that in the next questions you provide him with parts of the text that you want him to summarize, for example, and then use several questions to provide him this with this text. But if you are what was shown on my screenshot did not require any ingestion of any papers by Pierre Bourdieu or anyone else. It was already in the corpus of ChatGPT, which probably includes hundreds of millions of academic papers written up to the previous year, as far as I understand. So yes, you can only ask your questions and it could produce something. Just be highly critical about if it's really when it cites some research. How can we clarify some particular field of knowledge? Using ChatGPT, you can use prompts. Just ask it accordingly. Please answer my questions. For example, as a renowned French sociologist working in the vein of Pierre Bourdieu or Latour, or I don't know, anyone else, you could just frame your questions in such a way that you just directly ask ChatGPT about, for example, quantum chemistry, and just suggest in your question that you're interested in the answers in the field of quantum chemistry, and you could also ask it to produce answers in the academic style. There are many texts just how to use ChatGPT in research. There, for example, in my slides, the probably the closest is to this tutorial is this text by American Chemical Society, which I've joked that it was lame. It's okay. It's not lame. We're lame together, and there are many valid points. I think that depends on us how we'll use this and how we'll counter the usage which could easily corrupt academia.